Dit is De Week, het actualiteitenprogramma van Color Radio, waarbij dieper wordt ingegaan op de achtergronden van het nieuws. Presentatie Carlos Deurham.
Goedemiddag, welkom bij deze aflevering van De Week. Vandaag gaan we in de week in op de Caricom top, welke de afgelopen week is gehouden in Paramaribo. Zeer belangrijke top, waarbij de regeringsleiders van de 15 Caricom-lidlanden bij elkaar komen om de prioriteiten voor de komende 6 maanden te bespreken. Deze Head of States vergadering is erg belangrijk omdat wij de COVID-19-pandemie hebben gehad. De klimaatsverandering wordt steeds duidelijker zichtbaar in de wereld, ook in onze regio. En wij hebben de oorlog in Oekraïne met als direct gevolg stijgende olie- en gasprijzen. Hoe reageert de Caribische regio op deze ingrijpende veranderingen? En natuurlijk maakt het feit dat Suriname vanaf 1 juli voorzitter is van de Caricom en president Chandrika Persat Santokhi de chair is en derhalve de komende 6 maanden leiding geeft aan de organisatie, deze Caricom Head of States meeting bijzonder belangrijk. Is president Santokhi erin geslaagd zijn stempel te drukken en kunnen wij praten over een geslaagde Caricom-top in ons land? Zometeen het verslag van de week met daarin het antwoord op gestelde vragen. Dit is het weekoverzicht van zondag 10 juli. Op 16 juli aanstaande is de regering Santokhi-Brunswijk precies 2 jaar aan de macht. Van de 26 in de door de regering genoemde urgentiefase opgenomen prioriteitsacties is nog niet eens de helft gerealiseerd. Dat schrijft de Vereniging van Economisten, de VES, in haar laatste uitgave van Inzicht. Volgens onze economen loopt de regering steeds verder achter bij de uitvoering van haar regeerakkoord. De VES wijst met name op de prioriteitsactie nummer 20, evaluatie en herziening grondwet en het kiesstelsel, wat niet ter hand is genomen. En uitgerekend de vicepresident heeft zich nu fel gekant tegen de wijziging van de kieswet en heeft dreigende taal uitgesproken richting advocaat Serena Asset en het Constitutioneel Hof. De VES zegt dat het vertrouwen in de politiek en in politici door deze houding van de vicepresident naar een nulpunt is gedaald. De politieke partij VAP heeft de bedreigingen geuit vorige week zaterdag tijdens een resortvergadering van de ABOP door vicepresident Ronnie Brunswijk aan het adres van advocaat Serena Asset en het Constitutioneel Hof in niet mis te verstane woorden afgekeurd en distancieert zich van diegenen die zich schuldig maken aan dit gedrag. De Oranje Partij van voorzitter Chandrika Persat Santokhi benadrukt dat de partij slechts werkt met inachtneming van de regels van de rechtsstaat en roept de vicepresident op om de democratie te waarborgen door het in acht nemen van wet en recht. Ook de andere coalitiepartner van de ABOP, de Nationale Partij Suriname, heeft met klem de bedreigingen van Brunswijk veroordeeld. Bovendien stelt de NPS dat zij als partij regelmatig heeft aangegeven dat het kiessysteem dient te worden aangepast. President Chandrika Persat Santokhi heeft nog steeds niet de beschikking over de gevraagde documenten van het Sabaku-project waar 2 weken geleden heisa over is ontstaan. Minister Dinota Voorswijk van Grondbeleid heeft verschillende wetten overtreden bij de uitgifte van de gronden van het Sabaku-project aan partijtoppers van de ABOP en andere politiek gelieerden. Wanneer de stukken binnen zijn, worden deze doorgestuurd naar de Nationale Assemblée. En milieuactivist Monique Paul heeft vrijdag de medaille Chevalier ontvangen van de Franse regering. Dit is de hoogste Franse onderscheiding die de milieuactivist krijgt voor haar inspanning om de natuur en het wild in Suriname te beschermen. Paul kreeg de medaille opgespeld in het bijzijn van president Chandrika Persat Santokhi, die zijn waardering uitte voor het werk van Paul. Paul kreeg al eerder internationaal erkenning voor haar werk bij de uitverkiezing tot een van de genomineerden bij CNN Heroes.
Dit is De Week, het actualiteitenprogramma van Color Radio. Presentatie Carlos Deurham.
Van 3 tot 5 juli heeft Suriname de 43e Caricom Head of State Top georganiseerd in Paramaribo. Suriname is vanaf 1 juli 2022 voor de periode van 6 maanden de voorzitter van de Caribische Economische Organisatie en president Chandrika Persat Santokhi heeft de leiding binnen de Caricom. De Caricom stond reeds op het kruispunt om daadwerkelijk invulling te geven aan zaken welke in het verdrag van Chaguaramas zijn opgenomen. Maar de COVID-19-pandemie, de zeer ernstige klimaatsveranderingen in de wereld en de oorlog in Oekraïne maken het nu nog urgenter om zaken sneller op spoor te brengen. Suriname heeft tijdens genoemde Caricom-top een goede beurt gemaakt en president Santokhi heeft vanaf de opening van de summit direct de lijnen uitgezet en aangegeven dat er concrete beslissingen dienen te worden genomen. President Santokhi geeft aan wat de resultaten zijn geweest van de meeting.
The spirit of this summit of the heads of government of Caribbean states and associate members was that there must be a change. Change within the Caribbean organization, within the secretariat, within our strategy. We don't want bureaucracy. We don't want too much talking. We need action. And I have experienced as chair of this conference that spirit was during all deliberations on all topics of the summit. And that is a great achievement. The SG can inform you on the proposals which were made and approved also on the community governance. For example, we have decided that the heads of government shouldn't meet twice in a year on a regular session. No, we need to have monitoring of all the decisions what we are taking. So we have decided that there will be 4 meetings added more virtually to monitor the decision, but also to look what is hampering in the implementation of all the decisions we are taking. The other decision was also to have a better preparation on those summits by giving the lead heads the responsibility to discuss properly in working groups their topics or issues which are under the umbrella of the quasi-cabinet, so that those summits can be proceed more effectively based on good preparation by the several working groups led by the heads. As we have come to the conclusion on this 43rd Heads of State Caricom meeting, we can say in all modesty that we had a fruitful meeting. Earlier I stated that we must form a coalition of willingness. This is needed in order to be enabled to achieve set goals and continually raise the bar on effectiveness of this beautiful organization. As you head back to your specific islands and countries, I urge you to keep in consideration that this is not a time to do business as usual. We have to pave the way for future generations. We have to lay firm foundations, this in order to build back better. The heads of government had a most successful and transformative meeting here in Suriname. Decisions were taken which would improve the way we conduct our affairs and ultimately the implementation of decisions to advance the integration process and enhance the lives of the people of the community. This was a major focus of our deliberations as we are determined to overhaul the business of the community to ensure the benefits of integration are enjoyed more readily by the people of the member states. With respect to issues discussed, we agreed to adopt a two-pronged strategic program of action to scale up climate finance towards building our resilience. This would entail focused and active advocacy underpinned by a regional coordinating mechanism and national capacity building to source and utilize climate finance. We also agreed that the resource mobilization strategy would include support from the Caribbean Development Bank to mobilize development finance. We would also advocate strongly for the allocation of concessional finance more fairly and equitable. This is a matter we impressed upon the United Nations Secretary General. He was very critical on this topic and he had promised his support to our community. The Secretary General Guterres also assured the conference of his continued support in efforts to obtain debt relief, to reform international financial system, and towards the use of a multi-dimensional vulnerability index. In our discussion with the SG, we urge him to have his organization to take a leading role in joining with us in the quest for reparations. We agreed on the need to invest more time and effort in strengthening solidarity and cooperation to develop a common, strong stance in advocating on the issues of reparation and migration at the UN and other international fora. We continue to pursue our agri-food agenda to enhance our food and nutrition security and to achieve the 25 by 2025 vision, the reduction of the food import bill by 25% by 2025. In that regard, we mandated the Council for Trade and Economic Development to conclude by the end of this month the programs aimed at removal of all non-tariff barriers to intra-regional trade, particularly agriculture goods. With regard to CSME, we agreed to definitions of and qualifications for household, domestic and agricultural workers and security officers, which are agreed categories for free movement within the Caribbean. We also agreed to move on the mutual recognition of companies incorporated within the members of the single market. So we had agreed in the past the free movement of the skilled nationals to give them the opportunity to work in the member states of the Caribbean nations. And now we have approved also labors which are not really the skilled labors, but labors we need in our countries, in our sister nations, and that we have removed all the barriers for them. Agriculture, also security officers, etc., and domestic labors. As regards the removal of barriers, I've just informed you that we removed the barriers for the domestic labors. And that was an issue we are discussing for many years. And we had declared that this conference should make a difference between this one and other conference, and that we need to take action. And we decided. We took action on all the people We're looking for opportunities in sister nations to find an opportunity as laborer in the security and domestic and the agriculture. Well, now we have removed all the barriers and they can have free movement and they can find labor in our sister nations. And as you may recall, when we had that meeting as Caribbean leader, Caricom, in Los Angeles on the Summit of the Americas with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, that we had agreed that there will be joint approach between Caricom and the leadership of the United States of America on 3 topics: food security, that is the energy issue, and that's the climate crisis, the finance. So we have elaborated on those topics. We agreed that there will be 3 committees on the side of Caricom. Those committees will be led by prime ministers, head of states, and will comprise of experts from the Caribbean countries. And there is a follow-up already to discuss those topics with the leadership of the United States, and there are meetings planned for the coming days. On industrial policy, which is a portfolio that was added to Surinamese responsibilities, the conference received a presentation from Suriname on the initial work review taken by the National Committee with the support of the Caricom Secretariat, the CDB, and the Caribbean Export. A substantive paper on industrial policy was circulated for review and consideration by the member states. A ministerial task force will be established to further give body to the formulation and implementation of an industrial policy for the region. The community also looks forward to the 50th anniversary of Caricom next year, and celebratory events are expected to take place across the community throughout a 12-month period. The meeting has presentation from the private sector, labor, and the civil society, and the Dean of the Caricom Youth Ambassadors Program representing the youth of the region also made a presentation. We congratulated in particular the youth of the community on their active engagement and participation in the Caricom Youth Forum held on the 24th of June 2022. And the Youth Summit will be held later this year in Suriname. Noteworthy is that Suriname has offered a 10-hectare of fertile land to the youth of the region. And with that, I conclude my remarks regarding the meeting.
Een aantal zaken voeren de boventoon bij de 43e Caricom-top. Ten eerste is het van groot belang dat er een regionaal industrial policy wordt ontwikkeld, vooral gezien de ontwikkelingen waarmee wij in de regio te kampen hebben. Ten tweede is de energiesecurity, het veiligstellen van onze energie, een conditio sine qua non, een absolute voorwaarde. In dit kader is door de CARICOM-leiders bepaald om Amerika te vragen de sancties tegen Venezuela op te heffen, waardoor de Petro-Caribe-deal, waarvan veel CARICOM-lidlanden profiteerden, weer kan worden voortgezet. Het derde belangrijke onderwerp tijdens deze top was de situatie te Haiti. De CARICOM-leiders zijn het unaniem eens dat de steun vanuit de overige lidlanden aan Haiti moet worden voortgezet. Minister Albert Ramdien van Buitenlandse Zaken, Buitenlandse Investeringen en Buitenlandse Betrekkingen BIBIS gaf na de top aan wat het begrip Regional Industrial Policy inhoudt.
I'll start saying a couple of things before I speak about the industrial policy, but more to put it in context. I think the time is right in our own region following the COVID-19 and the Ukraine crisis. Given all the impact it has on our economies, we all need to reboot our economies. It's a good time to revisit our economic production structures. So setting up an industrial policy task force is important in this regard. The other reason why it is important in this context currently is that the focus of the region's integration is on 3 things: on the single market and economy, on energy security, food security. And without an industrial policy that brings together all the three elements, the whole process would not be complete. So it makes sense to talk about industrial policy now, but also to mention that industrial policy was always included as a specific area in the Treaty of Chaguaramas, but not very much implemented in practice. Every country had their own industrial policy. So now we're speaking about a regional industrial policy with a quasi-cabinet responsibility for the President of Suriname. What we have agreed on here in this meeting is that there will be a ministerial task force with oversight by the President of Suriname to discuss much more in detail the regional industrial policy based on extensive analysis, but also in terms of the global context of such an industrial policy. And in this whole endeavor, in this whole exercise, national governments will be involved, and that's why there is a ministerial open-ended task force, but also regional institutions like the Caricom Secretariat, CDF, the Caribbean Development Fund, Caribbean Export, and the Caribbean Development Bank. And I'm sure that there will be need for more experts to be involved in this process. Another key stakeholder in this process are the private sector organizations in the region. And we already know that the private sector, the CPSO, has an interest to contribute to this process. And this is an alignment institutionally, regionally, but also on the basis of global developments, which bodes well for the future of our economies in the region. Let me immediately mention two factors which are considered a limiting factor. We will need to pay specific attention to that. One is market size. If you want to become an industrial complex or industrial production, building industrial production capacity, you'll need markets. So we need to look also beyond our own markets. Apart from producing for our own market, which is approximately 25 million at most in the region, but we have markets close by in Central America and South America, which can be addressed as well. That's one factor which we will need to include. The second one is labor. Our skill set in the region is narrow, is shallow, so we will need to look at that as well. Similar issues that play at a national level. Two things are critical in industrial policy as we see it for the region. One is we will need to diversify our economies, and industrial policy will provide that opportunity because we need to become up to a certain level, up to a certain degree, independent from production elsewhere. We have seen the consequences in terms of COVID-19 with the vaccines, where we were the last in line to be able to receive some. That marginalization we need to address in all other sectors as well. So that's one. Diversification, industrial policy will provide for a much more. The second one, a much better economic arrangement. We need to increase value-added economic activities in our own region. And those value-added economic activities will need to be formulated and agreed on. That's why I spoke about priority setting earlier, is that every country has their own strength. There are 3 countries in the region with food processing capabilities or food production capabilities: Suriname, Belize, and certainly Guyana. At the same time, other countries have food processing capabilities. So it's basically aligning the strength of different countries, different islands with each other and creating one economy. Again, here is the link with the single market and economy thinking. The other one is competitive advantage. That needs to be seen as a basis how we arrange ourselves in terms of industrial production in the region. As I said before, we will need a lot more information. So more analysis will be done. The ministerial task force will be composed within a couple of days, weeks, and then the first meeting will take place as soon as possible, and so we can fine-tune this process. But it is a new direction for the region in which we bring all different components. Connectivity is key, both through the internet as well as the virtual as well as the physical connections. Those will be required. So this is an integral approach to regional integration.
Volgens premier Ralph Gonsalves van St. Vincent en de Grenadines is de energiezekerheid in de wereld en dus ook in de regio niet gegarandeerd, vooral door de oorlog in Oekraïne, met als gevolg stijgende olieprijzen. De Caricom-landen stellen zich op het standpunt dat nu Amerika zelf weer met Venezuela praat over olieleveranties aan Europa, het ook weer mogelijk moet zijn dat Venezuela olie levert aan de landen in de regio. Daarom hebben de Caricom-leiders besloten om een beroep te doen op de Verenigde Staten om de sancties tegen Venezuela op te heffen om de Petro-Caribe-deal weer mogelijk te maken. Vanaf 2005 bood Venezuela de lidlanden van de Caricom goedkope olie aan, waarbij een deel van de kosten pas na 25 jaar hoeft te worden betaald en over de openstaande schuld een zeer lage rente wordt gegeven.
In addressing the energy question, I don't want us to think that we are beginning with a blank slate. Already existing in Caricom is a regional energy policy. There's a Caricom energy policy, there's sub-regional energy policies, like for instance the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and each country has a national energy policy. And the energy policy addresses pre-existing, before we arrived here in Suriname, focused on renewable energy and also on energy efficiency. There are lots of initiatives and coordinated policies dealing with energy, renewable energy in relation to hydro, solar, wind, geothermal, energy efficiency matters concerning LEDs, particular types of equipment, and so on and so forth. Those are matters of record. What has made the issue of real urgency is the manipulation of the market addressing oil production and distribution, exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine war. And clearly the prices are rising, and we had to, in a sense, take, in cricketing terms, a fresh guard in light of these new circumstances. There's one obvious one, the supply of energy through the Petro-Caribe arrangement, which is very favorable to several countries in the Caribbean, including, and especially so, the independent countries of the OECS, but the other countries within Caricom. As you are aware, the unilateral sanctions by the United States administration imposed during the time of President Donald J. Trump in relation to Venezuela brought, for all practical purposes, the Petro-Caribe arrangement to an end. This arrangement delivered important financing benefits to countries participating. The arrangement was brought to an end because the sanctions would have affected the actual shipping arrangements and the financialization. The circumstances are propitious for us to call, and we have in fact made a decision for an end to these sanctions in relation to the Petro-Caribe arrangement. After all, because of what is happening in Europe, we hear that the United States of America wants to give the Europeans a carve-out, a special carve-out in relation to these sanctions, unilateral as they are, in relation to energy products out of Venezuela. We see the Americans themselves are going down to Caracas on 2 occasions now to see if they can make arrangements to get additional energy products. Because what is happening, we all know, we read about it, we hear it on CNN, BBC, all the networks, that the sanctions, in part, made the Russians make more money from energy to help them to fund, in part, the war. These are known facts. Well, you can't on the one hand looking for carve-outs for Europeans. You can't at the same time going to Venezuela looking for some special arrangement to get more oil. And then we are suffering. So it is only natural that we put this issue square on the table. And I can say this, 10 weeks ago I was in Caracas and I spoke to President Maduro about the resumption of the Petro-Caribe arrangement, and in fact the decision has been made for the resumption of it, all things being equal, and with a 35% upfront. So clearly we want to go and get this. Similarly, we know that the arrangements between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela with the border, the exploitation of the LNG, where the sanctions have already hit that. That is a matter which we discussed and to talk to our American friends about the unilateral sanctions in this regard. We are not doing this in any combative way, and we're not doing it in any confrontational way. There's a dialogue, a conversation between friends, Caricom and the United States of America, and the Venezuelans are also our friends. This is how responsible, mature leaders are trying to address an issue which is very much in front of us. So that is a specific bundle of issues concerning energy.
Ook de minister van Buitenlandse Zaken van de Bahama's, Darren Henfield, wint er geen doekjes om. Het is de hoogste tijd dat Amerika de sancties tegen Venezuela opheft.
The Bahamian Prime Minister, Philip Davis, made a statement shortly before coming here to the meeting about sanctions against Venezuela and the inability of Venezuelan oil to be introduced into the marketplace in the normal market mechanisms. And our view is it is time for those sanctions to be removed to allow for Venezuelan oil to enter the market. We believe just the possibility of saying so has led, in fact, to prices going in a downward direction. So this outturned document, again, makes the point that there ought to be a free return to the market mechanisms, and the Petrocaribe program, which existed before, assisted and helped Caribbean states with the question of energy prices. In the Bahamas, of course, energy is really private sector driven and not public sector driven, but certainly with the scrapping of the sanctions would in fact come a positive impact on pricing and cause a drop in the price of oil, which is a practical issue for citizens across the region.
Tijdens de Caricom-top was het bespreken van de situatie in Haiti het derde zwaartepunt. President Santokki geeft aan dat er nadrukkelijk aandacht is besteed aan de situatie in Haiti.
We received an update on the situation in Haiti and exchanged views with Prime Minister Henry, and we took the opportunity to express grave concern at the deteriorating security situation in Haiti. And the Prime Minister has responded also that his country is looking for more support and is also calling for starting a dialogue on national level to include all the institutions and all the stakeholders to discuss a stable and a good future for Haiti. We agreed that the Bureau of Conference of Caricom will be expanded and will include also the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Prime Minister of Barbados, Prime Minister of Jamaica, and also that we should express joint leadership, collective leadership towards Haiti. And there is a team of ministers of foreign affairs. The COFCOR will take the lead, and we have decided in Belize that a team of Caricom under leadership of the Secretary General should visit Haiti as a site visit and also to examine the situation in Haiti.
Ondanks Haiti gewoon net als alle andere lidstaten wat genoemd wordt een full member is van de Caricom, krijgen Haitianen in de Caricom-landen vaak een andere behandeling en genieten zij niet dezelfde rechten als de overige Caricom-burgers. De Haitiaanse journalist Shedelin Calixta Toussaint en de Weeks Carlos Durham spraken met de secretaris-generaal van de Caricom over deze kwestie en vroegen aan Miss Carla Bennett waarom dit aan de orde is.
I'm from Haiti. I just want to ask you why Haiti cannot benefit from all privileges for free movement between the Caribbean community.
There's a long history to that, and part of it is related to the situation on the ground in Haiti, the insecurity in which everybody lives, and so our focus is really on seeing how we can help Haiti at this stage to solve that problem. So that is the focus. The reality is that there's a large Haitian population in almost every country of the region. There's one here, there's one in the country that I come from, which is Belize. There's one in every country. And when Haitians come to our country, oftentimes the mechanisms are not good, if I can put it that way. There's a lot of transportation of persons that we have to be careful about, because sometimes when people want to leave a difficult situation in Haiti, they seek to take advantage of what seems to be a good solution. It's really not. And so there's a lot of issues related to insecurity that we need to sort out because we don't want to be partners in exploitation either. So it's a really difficult situation for us, but for many of the countries, as I say, there is already large Haitian communities of long standing, and that's the way it should be.
Do you finally have an agreement to give Haiti the position as a full member?
Yes, as a full member, there's a lot that Haiti needs to do as well from implementation of agreements point of view. So Haiti is a full member, but there are things that need to be done from a legal and administrative point of view that are all those. So it's a work in progress. It is a work in progress. That does not mean that Haiti is not a full member, yes. And we make that point whenever we are in an international discussion, for example, when we talk about working with Haiti, we don't want to be seen as a donor because we're not a donor to Haiti. Haiti is a member of the community. So that is the way we approach our interventions on behalf of Haiti in the international community. So Haiti is a full member, yes, but it is a work in progress as well.
But it has the attention of the whole Caricom.
It has the attention of the whole Caricom, and in fact, in view of the seriousness of the situation on the ground in Haiti, in view of the seriousness with which we take our role, heads made a decision today to raise the conversation around Haiti to a standing bureau of Caricom conversation, and the bureau is the president, the chairman, the incoming and the outgoing, and as well we had the countries of Jamaica, of St. Vincent, of Barbados, and of the Bahamas. Bahamas is already part of the bureau because they are the incoming, to keep the discussion with Haiti and around how we can be helpful with Haiti on the agenda and always under attention, because it's something that we do feel very strongly about, but we recognize our own limitations as well in terms of being able to make change under the circumstances. That's something that we want to be able to help Haiti to figure out. We can't go and offer solutions. We can try and help create a space within which the wide range of stakeholders within Haiti can contribute to their own solution.
We can conclude the whole Caricom is behind Haiti.
Absolutely. Not only from the point of view of where Haiti is right now, but a recognition of why Haiti is where it is, the historical circumstances that brought that on, and the unfairness and the injustices that have prevailed in the relationship between Haiti and the international community. So it's a very complex question. I'm sure you know that much more than I could ever.
Miss Bennett, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
In de marge van de Caricom-top was er ook een speciale meeting tussen een technische commissie uit Suriname en een technische commissie uit Haiti.
De technische meeting is een uitvloeisel van afspraken die waren gemaakt in Los Angeles tijdens de Summit of the Americas. Aan marge van de meeting was tussen de beide regeringsleiders afgesproken dat er een technisch team hier zou komen om te bespreken de condities waaronder Haitianen weer naar Suriname zouden kunnen komen. We hebben geluisterd naar hun en naar het technisch team. Er is een voorstel op papier gedaan. Wij hebben toch nog de behoefte om met verschillende diensten, los van buitenlandse zaken, daarover verder van gedachten te wisselen. En daar zullen we op terugkomen heel snel, zodat er afspraken gemaakt kunnen worden dat de komst van Haitianen onder goede voorzieningen plaatsvindt met goede afspraken en dat er verantwoordelijkheid van verschillende instanties daarbij duidelijk is. Ten aanzien van Haiti, Haiti is over het algemeen een vast agendapunt op de Caricom-agenda, waarbij we eigenlijk in eerste instantie een update krijgen van de regeringsleiders van Haiti over de ontwikkelingen daar. Haiti heeft politieke, maatschappelijke, economische en ook nog veiligheidsproblemen. En normaliter is het al moeilijk genoeg om 1 of 2 van deze problemen tegelijk te hebben. Haiti heeft ze allemaal tegelijk. Daarmee kunt u inschatten hoe problematisch de situatie is. Op basis van de update door premier Henry is besloten dat er binnenkort een missie naar Haiti zal gaan. waarbij een eerste evaluatie wordt gepleegd van de stand van zaken in Haiti. Waarbij belangrijk is 2 punten. 1 is de veiligheidsomstandigheden, want er moeten verkiezingen komen in Haiti. Een deel van het parlement is inmiddels, het mandaat is geëxpireerd. Dus er moeten nieuwe parlementsleden worden gekozen. En deze verkiezingen moeten onder goede omstandigheden plaatsvinden, zodat de legitimiteit daarvan niet in twijfel wordt getrokken. Dat is 1 aspect. En het tweede aspect is, voordat we naar een verkiezing kunnen gaan, moet er een goed politiek overleg, dialoog zijn tussen de verschillende politieke actoren in Haiti. De politieke partijen, de parlementariërs, de regeringsvertegenwoordigers, maar ook de vakbeweging, de NGO-gemeenschap en het bedrijfsleven. Het is niet nieuw voor Haiti, dit overleg. Het is vaker gebeurd, maar het is een moeizaam proces waarbij de standpunten vaak uit elkaar liggen. Dus ook daar is hulp aangeboden om dat proces te helpen ondersteunen.
De Caricom wil dus daar een rol in spelen.
Ja, dat is aangeboden. Uiteraard wat we ook gaan doen met betrekking tot Haiti zal moeten zijn op basis van de initiatieven die in Haiti zelf ondernomen moeten worden. En ook op verzoek van Haiti. Dat is heel duidelijk afgesproken.
En de missie waar u het over had die naar Haiti gaat, daar praat u over een missie vanuit de Caricom.
Dat klopt.
Premier Ariel Henry had op de laatste dag van de Caricom-top een ontmoeting met Haitianen die in Suriname woonachtig zijn. President Santokki had collega Henry in Los Angeles toegezegd ervoor zorg te dragen dat het Haitiaanse staatshoofd de gelegenheid heeft om zijn landgenoten hier in Suriname te ontmoeten.
Oui, moi dis donc c'est un honneur pour moi avec nous-mêmes dans la communauté haïtienne qui vient ici, qui a une contribution à l'économie Suriname. Président Suriname, tu as rencontré la dernière rencontre nous te faire. Nous faisons une dernière rencontre au niveau de Los Angeles en Californie, dans le sommet des Amériques. Et lors de rencontre ça, il était qu'on aime d'avenir ici dans le sommet Caricom et il était dit que l'a organisé une rencontre avec quelques Haïtiens.
Ik voel mij vereerd om hier in Suriname mijn mensen van de Haitiaanse community te ontmoeten. Tijdens de Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles vorige maand heeft president Santokki mij aangegeven om deze meet and greet voor mij te organiseren, sprak Henry de aanwezige Haitianen woensdag toe. Journalisten Chatelain Calexta Toussaint en Carlos Durham, die door Henry waren uitgenodigd de meet and greet bij te wonen, kregen de gelegenheid Henry enkele vragen te stellen. Calixte vroeg aan Henry of hij het overweegt om in Guyana, waar het hoofdkwartier van de Caricom is gevestigd, een Haitiaanse ambassade te openen, waar Haitianen terecht kunnen wanneer zij waar dan ook in de Caricom niet op de juiste wijze worden behandeld. Henry stelde dat het inderdaad de bedoeling is om een Haitiaanse ambassade te openen in Georgetown. De regering heeft volgens Henry kandidaten op het oog voor de post. Carlos Durham vroeg premier Henry hoe hij de relatie ziet tussen Suriname en Haiti.
Bonjour, Prime Minister. Excuse me, I have to speak English with you, and I like you to answer me in English. For about 50 years, a lot of Haitians are coming to Suriname. They build their life here. What I want to know from you as the Prime Minister, how do you see the relation between Haiti and Suriname?
Since I'm in office, I developed very close relationship with Suriname. And we think that together we could achieve a lot. A lot for the community of Caricom, but a lot also for the benefit of our two countries, of the people of our two countries. When I've been approached lately by President of Suriname, President Santokki, what he was envisioned was the good of the people of Haiti. And he was saying that in his country he could welcome a lot of Haitians. They could from there have some benefit for themselves, for the benefit of the country of Suriname. Haiti is traditionally a country friend with the people of the Caricom. if you go in the past history, even during the colonial time, we used to have close relationship. And I don't understand how they were selling to the different countries to share ideas, to share their culture, to share their belief. We have good relationship with Suriname and we intend to improve that relationship. Together we could achieve a lot. I would want to say thank you. I want to thank you for the welcome that I received. And I hope that we could improve our relationship and develop a partnership that will benefit to our people. We think that the Haitians coming here, they are coming here because they are seeking for better life. And we thank you because you welcome them. They are hard workers, and I think that they will benefit the economy of Suriname. Once again, thanks a lot for the welcome. Thanks a lot for the possibility that you offer me.
Op vrijdag volgde er na de Caricom-top een internationaal ministerieel partnersoverleg met betrekking tot de situatie in Haiti onder leiding van de Surinaamse minister van Buitenlandse Zaken, Albert Ramdien. Het betreft partners van alle continenten die Haiti ondersteunen. Het lukte Ramdien om het bedrag dat aan Haiti wordt gegeven om de komende periode zaken aan te pakken, wordt verdubbeld van $140 miljoen naar $270 miljoen.
Binnen de internationale gemeenschap bestaat er een hoge mate van solidariteit met Haiti. De betrokkenheid van de internationale gemeenschap met Haiti is altijd groot geweest. Maar deze groep komt dus op regelmatige basis bijeen. Dit was de 4e bijeenkomst. Waarbij dan gemobiliseerd wordt financiële steun, technische bijstand en andersoortige steun ten behoeve van Haiti. De groep die normaliter dus deze meeting organiseert, heeft mij gevraagd om als voorzitter op te treden. Het is separaat van de Caricom meeting hier, maar het heeft wel een relatie omdat we nu ook als voorzitter van Caricom een belangrijke rol spelen. Het is een goed bezochte meeting geweest van een 10-tal personen van verschillende landen, zo'n 20 landen in de wereld. En er is daar toch aardig wat geld gepledged.
Toegezegd dus.
Er is eigenlijk sprake van een verdubbeling van 140 miljoen naar ongeveer 270 miljoen is er nu gepledged.
U bedoelt US dollar?
US dollars.
En voor welke periode bedoelt u? Voor een jaar?
Dat is voor de komende maanden.
Als u zegt die groep, kunt u een aantal landen aangeven die daarvan deel uitmaken?
Dat zijn landen uit Zuid-Amerika, Argentinië, Brazilië, Chile, Mexico, landen uit het westelijk halfrond, wat Jamaica, Bahamas, Haiti uiteraard. We hadden Costa Rica en ook de Verenigde Staten, Frankrijk, de Europese Unie, Verenigde Naties organisaties, landen als Japan. Dus het is van alle continenten zijn er landen aanwezig, Duitsland. En ik ben blij dat we naar een verdubbeling zijn gegaan, want er wordt in Haiti is het initiatief al genomen om te komen tot politiek dialoog. Maar het belangrijkste is dat de ondersteuning aan de Haitiaanse politie, de nationale Haitiaanse politieapparaat, dat wordt ondersteund omdat zij in staat moeten zijn de problematiek van de binnenlandse criminaliteit aan te pakken. Zonder dat aan te pakken zal het moeilijk zijn te gaan naar stabiele, rustige verkiezingen waarbij ieder zich vrij voelt om naar de stembus te gaan.
De Caricom staatshoofdenvergadering is succesvol geweest. Niet alleen heeft president Santokki zijn stempel gedrukt op deze meeting, door de Caricom-leiders te overtuigen van het feit dat de lidlanden nu daadwerkelijk samen moeten optrekken, maar hij heeft het tempo van de besluitvorming binnen de organisatie kunnen verhogen. Nooit eerder zijn er op een Caricom-top zo snel en zoveel zwaarwichtige besluiten genomen. Santokki heeft er ook voor gezorgd dat de leiders van de Caribische gemeenschap voortaan minimaal 6 maal per jaar vergaderen in plaats van 2 maal per jaar. De president heeft aangegeven resultaten te willen zien van gemaakte afspraken en daarom moeten zaken strak worden gemonitord. President Chandrika Persat Santokki heeft een topprestatie neergezet. Hij heeft zijn stempel gedrukt en zijn werkstijl is aangeslagen. Santokki geeft de komende periode daadwerkelijk leiding aan de Caricom. Chapeau. Wij zijn gekomen aan het eind van dit programma. Volgende week zondag zijn wij er weer met een nieuwe aflevering van De Week. Tekade. Tamboom.